live from Montreal, Canada. Tonight on Still Talking with Jacob Fortbank, Bitcoin's out of control, the hot sauce debacle, the horrors of job hunting, and the mystery of the cricket choir. With musical talent, Braden Square. And now, your host, here's Jake.
All right, welcome to the show. If anyone's tuning in right now, you are interrupting our little thing because this is our total little beta thing we got going on, me and Tommy Boy. I don't know if anybody, if any of you people were paying attention to Jake's stock, which happened a few days ago, you know that we dipped our little pen in the ink there pretty hardcore. When you say so, Tommy Boy, with this whole experiment in trying to stream shit live there, buddy.
That was so buttery smooth.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing went wrong.
Nothing went wrong.
No. Well, you know what, though?
Nothing but net.
Yeah. You know what, though? Honestly, considering how things went, we had... we were an hour and a half late, which is, you know, that'll happen.
Not bad.
And what else? What else was there?
On a 12-hour telethon event, what's an hour and a half?
Right, really? But we went over. So technically, even though we were late, we went past, so I think that was all fair. Wouldn't you say that was fair? I think that was fair.
You know, we delivered the content, though. I think everybody got what they wanted.
They got what they wanted. And you know what? The people who just paid attention say they had, like, a crazy, awesome time. One or two people, I don't know who they are, but watched the entire thing. Did you know this? This is 12 hours, by the way, that they watched. And that is terrifying because no one should ever watch 12 hours of me. That's just sick.
That's a lot of video.
That is a lot of video. So, if you didn't hear from our little intro, we got a hell of a good show. For our very first show of Still Talking with Jacob Fortune, which is just the name we came up with. Is that going to be the name we're going with? I guess so.
Are you still talking?
I'm still talking. So, on the today, I don't know if you heard this. This is a shocking bit of news. Originally, I was talking about that the Sriracha Plant, if you've ever had the hot sauce, the delicious hot sauce, if you ever had some Asian food, if you're eating some pho or pho, I don't know how you fucking pronounce it, but some Vietnamese food or even some Asian food, you've had this wonderful hot sauce, which most of us have absolutely no idea where it's from. See, at first I thought actually it was from Thailand or something. It is not from Thailand.
I go crazy for this sauce.
Oh yeah,
it
actually
Tom,
by the way, our producer Tom, is so nuts for that. It's actually disgusting when he does it. So when we go to the Vietnamese restaurant, you know how they have those special Vietnamese spoons that are pretty large? He sprays that thing with like a massive blob of it, as much as you could fucking fit in one of those. And then he just dips his noodle, and then he just eats it raw. He's actually gotten me to do this, by the way, which is just sick because... I mean, that's all you're eating. You're eating just this chili sauce that was made by this Vietnamese guy. Admittedly, he is Asian, but he wanted to come up. He loved chili sauce. He wanted to come up with something that was fresh tasting, whatever. He didn't like what was available out there. He felt that it was too vinegary, so he came up with the sauce. And they're based out of California. So what's happened recently is that the people have been moving into the neighborhood, and I guess. It's been a bit of a gentrification, and now people are complaining about the smell that this plant is making. And so they've gotten a judge to shut her down, and originally there was just only supposed to slow down production, but they have fucking shut this thing down right now. So if you are paying attention to this, you need to just go home and... You know, like, make a list for yourself. You're going to be like, I need to get like 5 or 6 bottles of that shit because I don't know what the future holds for Sriracha, but the future is not bright. The future is not unlimited. The future is terrifying. So, if you're a fan like me, honestly, you need to get yours now. Supplies are limited. They're shutting her down.
Do it for the kids.
I mean, like, it's the best chilies. I put it on eggs. I put it in my hot dogs. I'm trying to think, what else do I put it on?
What does it not go well with?
I'm trying to think.
Any
peanut butter
food? Oh,
peanut butter.
No, that's where you're wrong, sir.
No, I'm right.
You can make homemade peanut sauce with peanut butter and sriracha, or any other kind of chili sauce. If you're making your own spring rolls at home, that is good.
Okay, you're right. You can actually make a peanut sauce. I'm an idiot.
When I'm right, I'm right.
What does that even mean? When I'm right, I'm right. Shut your mouth. Get off my screen, you sir. Get off.
When I'm right, I'm right.
Get off my screen. We're coming back to me. So yeah, that's the bad news about the Sriracha thing. So that was a little important service public service announcement. The other thing I'd like to sort of like feature is a segment. I went back and I watched a whole bunch of old videos of Johnny Carson and the Tonight Show, and I realized something. We joked about the fact that in today's society we show cats and all these other cute animals, and it's all bullshit, just meant to like get viewers. Well, that's some old ass shit, let me tell you something, because Johnny Carson used to do it all the time with his fucking animal segment. In fact, it was not uncommon. I saw one episode where he had 2 animal segments that lasted like 15 minutes apiece. That's 30 minutes of cute fucking shit on your screen.
Honestly, that's too much. Sorry,
Yeah.
Johnny.
Well,
Love you, Johnny.
you
but-
cannot always, if you're filling out like nightly shows, you're probably going to be able to get a little desperate. So
Is that what they call animal filler?
I don't know what it is. It's like cute filler. That's the best way that I can put it. So we have our own version of cute filler. We found this footage of this whale. I think that people love whales. So let's
The majestic whale.
the majestic sperm whale. So let's check out a little bit of footage. This is our animal segment. Oh, dear God! Oh, that's not cute at all. Oh, that's
One more time.
oh. You ever watch like Akira? You know the cartoon where all that guy's arm goes all crazy. Look at that. Oh, yeah.
It's dripping with disgust.
See, I don't think we did that right. It was supposed to be a cute segment. Instead, we showed a whale's stomach exploding. That's going to be a lot of gas, let me tell you. You can actually see the gas. And if anybody's actually having Thanksgiving dinner at this moment and you're having some cranberry sauce, let me tell you something. It looks exactly like what's coming out.
You know when you eat
that
a
thing.
bit too much turkey?
Yeah.
And you feel like
You always think that
a
could
little
happen.
overstuffed.
That could happen. And you know what? That did happen. It happened for fucking giant sperm whale. Damn.
Oh my.
So there you go, folks. That's us trying to do the little animal thing. I don't know if we did it right. Did we do it right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Now, in our next segment, this is something that I feel a bit late to the game. Some people were talking about it way in the day, and I admit I was one of those little shit-talking idiots. So if you have not heard of Bitcoin, then come out of your cave and join the rest of us in the modern-day world. But this is one of those, at first we like to make this joke of saying, oh, this is just one of those tulip kind of trade thing, majiggies, just speculation gone wild. But if you actually really pay attention to what Bitcoin is, you realize that imagine if you could create a currency in which it had built in this idea of limitation, and that's the kind of appeal to it, because many currencies.
That doesn't sound appealing. I'm sorry.
No, it does sound appealing, because if you have this unlimited currency that you can print to ad infinitum, you have like runaway inflation. That's not good. Most currencies back in the day used to be grounded on something that was limited, something that you could say we only have so much of. Well, back in the day it was gold, right? Like
Right.
we only had so much gold. But gold's not as sexy as it used to be, because I think for the most part we realized that gold is better like for electronic equipment and stuff. So maybe it's best to not hoard gold just to have like an economy. That seems kind of silly. So this weird Japanese mathematician came up with an idea
Gold is best.
that essentially solves a problem. So you can create this very complex mathematical algorithm that pumps out a certain amount of, how would you say it? How would I describe it? I feel like an idiot when I'm describing this. It pumps out a certain amount of a unit, if you want, which we'll call the Bitcoin.
Let's just call it Bitcoin.
Okay, I guess we'll
now.
call it that.
Yeah.
And the more you want to make of this, the harder it is to actually produce. I mean, it's not just the fact that the mathematical algorithm makes it so that there's a limited amount. It's that the more you want to produce, the harder it is. And those are kind of limitations that we have even in our own world because of technological limitations. I mean, you're number crunching to get these fucking suckers out. So Now, right, like a one Bitcoin at this moment. I mean, originally when they came out, what were people paying for Bitcoins?
Oh, you were less than $1.
Less than $1 for a Bitcoin
Pennies,
because
pennies.
Just yeah, pennies. Yeah, and it was back then. Well, I don't know if it was easy to actually manufacture Bitcoins, but let's just say that it was not. You didn't have to have the kind of massive, crazy server farms you have to have now to make one of these motherfuckers. But currently, the price of Bitcoin is going a little bit nuts because I guess everybody around the world wants to get in on that, including China, and the current price is sitting somewhere around. It was 1,000. What is it now? Has it changed?
Oh, it's over 1,000.
It's over 1,000 as we're speaking. Obviously, if you can see from the graph, I mean, it's never a stable thing, and every time you see something kind of run away upwards, it may have some downward shifts, which it will happen with anything. But I think the important thing to understand here is that if you do not have at least one Bitcoin, then you're a fool. I gotta find one. I need to find one. Can someone give me one? I know they're really expensive now. Hopefully they'll come down in price because I want one.
Our buddy who mines Bitcoins and is into all of that.
Yeah.
He got in a little bit late, not like his friend who got in really early and did very well for himself. He was saying that there are now debit cards that you can use in any store, any restaurant, anywhere that you would use your own currency that would normally take a bank card or a debit card. What this bank does, we'll have to find the name later, but it basically converts in real time from your Bitcoin stash, which is now worth like 1,000 per Bitcoin, to the local currency.
Okay, but that's weird. That's in real time. So you go to a restaurant and you're like, I'm going to pay my meal in Bitcoin, and all of a sudden you're like, shit, this meal's either really expensive right now or super cheap. Like, that's weird.
You walked in a quadrillionaire and you tried to pay for your spaghetti and you're just another bum.
It's like, sir, the currency crashed. Yes, be like, well, can you wait a few minutes? Because it might come back.
You think
Can I have an appetizer? Because by the time the appetizer comes, maybe it'll come back up.
Thanks, Obama.
Thank you.
Can we blame Obama for this?
Well, I will tell you one thing. If you want to know what the fate of Bitcoin is, well, there's a few things that are a kind of shocking. Number one is because people have absolutely no idea of the current value or even the future value of Bitcoin. Some people have either lost millions of dollars of Bitcoins because they got in way early. There was a story about a guy, I'm trying to remember where he is. He's somewhere in the U.S., where he had a hard drive which had roughly, at least for as of right now, $7.5 million worth of Bitcoin, which he threw out, and now it's in some landfill. So that's gone. Yeah. Whoops.
What an idiot.
When you think to yourself, when you throw out a piece of art like a Monet or a Picasso or something like that, and you threw it out accidentally, but you threw out a hard drive, and you didn't know there were $7.5 million of, that's right now. I mean, in the future, I heard some guy say that, the Bitcoin could go as high as $35,000.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
So if that was true, I mean, he wasn't sitting on $7 million, okay? He was sitting on it substantially more.
The fastest growing, most controversial currency.
Well, speaking of controversy, before we wrap up the Bitcoin segment, and this kind of brings me the whole thing of, will it maintain its value? And the question is, it really depends on whether or not governments will decide to step in on whether or not they will allow Bitcoin to continue. Because let's be truthful about some of the vulnerabilities of Bitcoin, and the major one is that it becomes the currency of the black market. So if you've never heard of something called the Silk Road, it was a website where you were able to buy drugs and use Bitcoins to pay for it. And the guy who ran it essentially got arrested and charged with, I think actually a few counts of murder, because apparently he had arranged some hitmen, and one of the hitmen was an FBI agent. Let me tell you something. Can I go on a tangent for a second? Never fucking hire a hitman. They're all FBI agents.
That's just
okay?
good advice right there.
It's like,
that's good advice.
What are the odds of you hiring a hitman and it is actually a hitman and not a fucking police officer? The odds are.
Do you even want to find out? That's just.
I don't actually think it's possible.
No, just don't do that.
Who wants to even find out? I don't want to find out. Oh, I fake hired a hitman because I wanted to know if it was going to be a police officer.
Bad idea.
That's bad journalism.
You're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, I'm not that kind of guy. So Bitcoin, really, the key, in my opinion, is whether or not governments are going to decide if it's a good idea or a bad idea. But in the meantime, Bitcoin speculation is like anything else, right? We found something that has some potential value, and we cling to it. I mean, it could be a rock, it could be just a bunch of gold, or it could be an unbelievably clever mathematical algorithm from a Japanese genius. So pick your currency, pick your value, right? So that's Bitcoin for you. So if you haven't gotten into that shit, well, it's too late. Really, do you have $1,000? Yeah, do you want to? Oh God, do you want to really spend $1,000 doing just on speculation? Really? No.
You'll probably feel like this guy.
A little bloated. Run away from that investment. But nevertheless, it's like kind of one of those things where if you get in early, sometimes that's the only thing that matters, which kind of reminds me about this whole live thing that we're trying, right? We're getting in early on this thing.
That's crazy.
I know, we don't even know what we're doing.
Who knows?
Who knows what we're doing?
You know we've had two viewers.
What is that about?
Who are they?
I know, right?
This is like
It's a completely private feed.
Night.
We have said nothing to anyone. And I told you, remember when I told you there was going to be someone that was going to fucking tune in? That's creepy. It's creepy as shit. Anyways, I guess that's the internet.
Hey guy, what are you doing listening to us right now? Come
Yeah.
on, guy.
This is a dry run. We don't even know what we're doing.
What are you doing?
Yeah, get out of here.
Get out of here. Scram.
Scram. Beat it. We don't want you.
Beat it.
Now, before we get into our first segment, there is one thing I want to kind of talk about, and this is something that has just shocked me. So I've been trying to, because the telethon didn't quite work out, I did apply for a job, and I figured the best thing for me to do is maybe I could work at a bookstore or something. Don't I look like one of these snooty douchebags that work at a bookstore, especially with his tweed jacket that I got rocking?
Most definitely.
Right, exactly. I look like one of those pretentious dicks that's going to tell you what to read and what not to read. So
you wouldn't be a team player. I just looking at you.
Well,
not a team player.
Maybe that's something that they can identify with the little psychological test they got going. So this is one of the things that I noticed, and this is kind of terrifying about applying for jobs at what essentially amounts to minimum wage in this country. Because when you've been out of the job market for as long as I have, you're like a pariah. So I've been trying to hit rock bottom of the job market here because we're quite desperate. So I applied, and every single job now, I don't know if this is true in the US, but at least it's true in Canada, you have to fill out this fucking survey. Now, it's not just any old survey. No, sir. It is like 73 questions after you've already answered probably 10 or 15 pages of references, education as it tries to transcribe your resume into the sort of you're working like a maniac, and by the end of it, they're going to ask you 73 self-evaluating questions, which I got to say is the most psychologically terrifying thing you can ever ask to a person. They're like, I'm going to ask you 73 questions that are going to ask your self-worth. Are you ready for this?
Give me an example.
Okay, so one example from one place that I asked, or I applied to, was asking that if you're working there and a family member stole something, would you report it to your manager? Now, there's a couple of problems with this question. The first problem is obviously you are aware that you're being asked this question, and you're also aware that you're being evaluated. So it's like Big Brother showing up to your house and saying, would you rat out your family if I asked you to? Now, you want a job, right?
Oh, yeah.
You do want a job, but at the same time you're secretly wondering to yourself, if I answer what they think they want me to answer, is this a trap? Should I be answering honestly? Because if I don't answer honestly, they're going to think that I'm some kind of psychopath selling his family down the river. Or do they actually expect me to sell my family down the river because their whatever algorithms they have for gathering the information is so unsophisticated that they actually think that people are going to give you the honest answer to that question? Because I have to wonder, how many layers are we going down here in this thing? Is this a real psychological evaluation? Because all I want to do is stack fucking shells and be paid about $10 an hour, and I'll shut my fucking mouth. What is the problem here? What am I not getting? I just want a job at this point.
So here's maybe one way to figure it out. Does the job require a soul? And if it doesn't, then you should just answer in the best interest of that company, I think. Yeah, sell your family down the river.
Well, I have answered that answer in the past, which has resulted in the similar "we didn't go anywhere" results. So unfortunately, I don't know what they want to hear. I mean, am I underqualified for whatever positions they want? I'm not quite sure. But let me tell you something. Applying for jobs should not be more difficult than trying to apply for like the National Security Agency. Like, because honestly, and you know what the most insidious thing about this whole thing, by the way, was the fact that they time you. There's a little time. Yeah, there's a little timer at the top. I saw it.
How much time did you have to answer?
Well, you have 74 minutes to answer every single question they ask you. That's the 73 questions, and that's the all of the resume shit that you have to fill out. So this is my opinion, and I have no reason to believe this is true, but my opinion is that they evaluate how long it takes for you to fill that out as an assessment of your general technical ability.
Oh, that's interesting. Like if you take too long, you're probably just overthinking your answers.
Or no, not just that. You're slow to learn. Maybe you just can't fill paper. Like the whole thing is when they ask you so many questions like this, what are they really trying to get to the bottom of? That's the question I got to ask, because that's terrifying. They're asking me to evaluate myself, and honestly, you're the one employing me. It's your fucking job to analyze me. I'm not supposed to do your job for you, okay? That's all I'm saying.
It's that little bit of free work that they want you to do just to get the job.
Well, at least they give you
give you yourself your own psychoanalysis.
At least they give you 74 minutes to get it done.
That's nice of them. For free? You don't have to pay for it?
No. Well, your time is apparently worth nothing, because 74 minutes of your time is worth merely one application. 0. I felt like, am I going into space? Am I applying? Am I an astronaut? Really? Anyways, I suppose that's my rent.
You never know.
And here's what the people that are potentially hiring me may be watching this video right now. I may not even get a job because I've screwed up my chances, bro. This is all your fault, by the way. You can thank my producer.
This is my fault.
Yeah. You're an enabler.
My fault. I'm an enabler.
Yeah. Exactly. Is this my house? Is this my couch?
You should, the next time you have one of these tests, just check C. Every answer C. At least you'll be consistent. Isn't that what they're looking for? A dependable, consistent employee? It sounds like a good...
I don't actually know what they're looking for. From the questions that I was answering, the best thing that I can tell you is they were looking for people who were willing to engage customers. So they asked questions that were very geared towards, well, if you meet someone new, are you likely to talk to them, to stay in the corner? I mean, like, do you think I'm going to reply that I'm not going to talk to anybody? Do you expect honesty? I guess that's my question. Really, do you expect it? Do you want that? Do you want me to be honest in this survey? Because let me be honest with you right now, survey person. The honesty is that for the amount that you charge, the survey was not worth it. So, but I guess you're not going to even give me the job. So, you know what does give me a job? People who
That's
pay
just
attention.
a bad attitude. I just want to point
Is that
out.
is that a bad attitude? I'm not a really good employee, am I? I'm not ideal.
Not an employee. Is that good or bad? It's like dividing by 0. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
There is a way for people to sort of like save me from this situation. So if you're tuning in to this show from jacobfortan.com or thegoodatheist.net, then you'll notice as you scroll down, there are a variety of things that you can buy, including a surprisingly popular postcard, by the way, which we will be featuring many more postcards because they sold well, and I think you guys really love them. We're going to make a whole series of them, including other artists that are going to make postcards. We also have the pre-order for the Bible stories. That helps get shit done, son. Now, if you love the podcast before and you want the best of, we have the Essentials DVD, so you can get that. And then finally, if you want the whole package plus this really awesome mega shirt, you can get the whole thing. I know it sounds like really expensive, $60. You're not buying a shirt. You're buying absolutely everything. You're buying the ebook, audio book, Essentials DVD, and the postcards. You're buying like 10 postcards and the shirt for $60. So you can pick your sizes. If you do not want to use PayPal, you want to use any other thing, there's a contact us button, so go there. And this is how we're going to keep the show going, guys. That's our little spiel. That's like kind of like, we stay tuned due to viewers like you. Well, viewers like you help make that happen. So support us, and if we can keep rolling and I can keep doing these kinds of live shows and shit like that, well, we'll announce this. This is a bit of our secret one, right? It's not really live. It is live, but it's not really live. You know? It's kind of BS live, isn't it? What kind of chicken shit? We should have announced it more.
It's live-ish.
How many people are tuning in, though? You said
you
two,
alive?
right? So there were two at some point? Some weird shit going on.
Yeah, there's some weird shit going on.
Yeah, there's some fucking people tuning in.
Some lurkers.
We got some lurkers.
Hey, lurkers.
How you doing, lurkers? Thanks for joining in. So the next segment we have, this is very exciting. I was doing a Skeptics Corner. Now, eventually in the future, we'll have different like little backgrounds and shit like that. It's gonna be. We're still on the cheap, aren't we? On the cheap, buddy. We're a bit on the cheap, buddy. We got this shit figured out though. So I'm gonna include a little segment called Skeptics Corner, and now you may have heard about this because this has been making the rounds on Facebook, on Twitter. So if you've heard that there's this cricket song that once you slow down, you'll hear this harmonious little symphony. And like the one I saw, I think
sounds insane.
that does
I just
sound.
have to say on the record, that sounds insane.
That sounds a little bit too wacky to be true. So, I mean, naturally, obviously, everybody was skeptical. So I did my research, and there's a few things that are both surprising and amazing about this. So we'll start with the audio recording. So let's make everybody familiar with this sort of cricket song. So this has been attributed to a recording that was made in 1992 from a Tom Waits album. But this was recorded by Jim Wilson. This was a Canadian producer who supposedly recorded cricket sounds and then slowed it down and then basically brought down the tempo or whatever. So this is a slightly manipulated cricket sounds according to him. So let's listen to that right now.
So this is what he released, saying that
this is on the album.
He heard something when he slowed it down.
Right.
All right, let's take a listen.
Let's take a listen. So it does appear like it does sound like there's a harmony going on.
Well, let me just skip ahead a little bit here.
Skip ahead. Okay, but it's like an hour long. You don't need to play the whole thing. We'll have a link for it in below anyway. So this is the supposed chorus. So this was off a Tom Waits album called Medicine Songs. And it's from this weird little poetry, like I think it's overlaid with poetry. I think there will be a link for it in the notes for a song called Ballad of the Twisted Hair. So what happened was that a couple of years later, another Canadian producer by the name of Robbie Robertson took this track and he asked an opera singer by the name of Bonnie Jo Hunt to do a song version of it. And this became like, there's an article about it actually, also describing the fact that when she was first told that she needed to do a song a follow-up, if you will, with a bunch of crickets. At first she was like, are you for real? But when she heard the audio sample, which is what you heard, she overlaid another sample, which is her. We won't play that because that'll be too many samples. But she has a sample where she sings as well, which has also made the rounds. I don't know if we have that. We don't have that. Now,
that also sounds insane.
Okay, so
in a different way.
I'm just trying to alleviate the confusion. So there's a few versions of this one that's come out.
Okay.
But the most important thing about this entire recording is, number one, you know when you're trying to debunk something, the first is the recording comes from 1992 and Jim Wilson is dead. He's fucking dead. So you can't just ask him what the fuck this deal is and if it's legit. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that from the best debunkers that I've listened to, the ones that I've basically researched, they will say that the audio recordings have never been duplicated. There's a couple of other audio recordings. One of them comes from a website called what is it? Waffles. I have it below. What is it? Waffles on I forget. It's in the link.
Waffle House.
Jam.
What?
No.
No, Waffles at Noon.
Waffles at Noon.
Thanks,
Thank
Waffles
you.
at Noon.
Waffles at Noon. They have a number of other cricket sounds because they also wanted to try to debunk this whole thing. They have a number of other cricket sounds overlaid. And while...
Insane. Again, I'm sorry, but I just have to say that. Insane.
Now, you've heard the audio recordings of that. We have one of them right now. And I want you to hear one that they duplicated, and you'll see whether or not that sounds similar. Let's play the cricket song, Slow Down.
So this is an actual cricket, actually slowed down with no smoke and mirrors.
With no smoke and mirrors.
Okay, here we go. So that's what a real cricket sounds like. So just for comparison, this is what they were trying to pass off as a real cricket slowed down.
Now, first of all, you hear the cricket, so they overlaid the original cricket sound, supposed slowed down, but they also said they did some kind of like, well, they weren't specific about the effect. They supposedly
So just again for comparison,
let's go back to the cricket sound.
Let's call it the scientific sound here. That's what a real cricket sounds like. Slow down. They don't sound anything alike.
It does not sound.
What a
it does not
bogus
sound
hoax.
Now, to be fair, again, different. Like we don't know if he took the audio sample, overlaid it, reverbed it. I mean, there's a ton of unanswered questions when it comes to it. But when you're stuck with this unanswered question, again, it's like one of those things where, well, if there's an effect there, it should be able to be duplicated. And the fact that so far no one has been able to do that, I'm gonna call it right now. I'm gonna say that this is essentially a hoax.
It's bunk.
We could be disproven, but here's the thing that I think is much more interesting about this entire thing, and the part I want people to comprehend. Now, when you play the sound slowed down, it sounds much different, and I think I don't want to underscore how cool that effect is, because think about this: a cricket will live for about 70 days. That's not a long time, but what is the speed that a cricket experiences time? Right? There are several parts of your brain that are responsible for your comprehension of time. Like, did something ever like scary or frightening ever happen to you, and all of a sudden you were just like, oh my God, like my heart was pumping, and all of a sudden everything slowed down. Well, we have a particular rate that we comprehend time at, but that can change when a few things happen. Like, for instance, if more adrenaline is pumped into your system, there's lots of new articles that have come out that have thrown questions to sort of like what parts of the brain are responsible for understanding of time. So we're just only now getting an understanding of how human beings comprehend time. But now when you look at a brain like a fucking cricket, which is a lot smaller, well, things happen probably a lot quicker, so maybe their own perception of time is a lot different. Maybe for them, a day feels more like a fucking week, or who knows, a year. So the interesting thing is, what does a cricket song really sound like for a cricket? So, well, that's what it sounds like when you have a really lame joke, but that may not like.
I thought it was pretty accurate.
Yeah, well, accurate to you, but again, that's how you perceive the song, right? That's the thing that I think we need to be aware of. We perceive time in a very unique way. We don't know if that perception is actually shared by any other creature. My guess would be no, by the way. Not by the noble cricket. Maybe maybe cricket sounds when really, really slowed down to some sexy ass shit. But I mean, I'm gonna guess that it's actually still pretty rudimentary and not altogether that complex. Because sometimes, do you have this feeling that sometimes we want to make nature seem almost more amazing than it is? I mean, it's already pretty fucking cool and amazing. Did we have to add reverb and like some music to it to make it sound more special?
Well, it reminds me of those glasses they sell for driving that are called HD glasses. You put them on and all of a sudden the world is in HD.
No, that doesn't
That's
really
just
exist.
amped up.
How can a glass give you better vision?
They're just drinking too many energy drinks. It's nuts.
HD glasses.
HD glasses.
Remember way back in the day where it was like high def or high fidelity was the fucking buzzword.
Hi-fi.
Oh
Coming
yeah,
at you in
hi-fi, man.
That's our parents' word though.
I think this show we should say that it's hi-fi.
Filmed in hi-fi.
Right, because like that doesn't mean anything anymore. Like we're at 320p, but back in the days of like early TVs, that was pretty much 320p or 480p.
Well, what do you think the crowd thinks of that? Do you think they'll kind of go wild for?
You know what? You're done with that cricket sound. We should take it away from you. You're done. No more cricket sound.
Okay.
And for you, you're fired.
All right, but anyway, let's defer to the crowd and see what they have to say.
Yeah. Well done for it. You know what's nice about virtual crowds? They don't really complain. They don't boo when you want them to.
They don't boo, and they stop on a dime.
All right, that's enough, everybody. There you go. They listen. They listen really loud. They're too ecstatic. They're ecstatic. That's the sound of all those the few people that have been tuning into the show, like uninvited. Thank you very much. What's up, lad? Get out of here.
Creepy lurkers.
Creepy lurkers.
You know how late it is?
I know. It's like
Get out
one.
of here.
It's
Scram.
like I'm sleepy. I'm gonna go to bed soon. Now, before we go to bed, we have a nice meaty segment. I have, as you heard before, we have a musical guest. Not only just a musical guest, but also a really great interview, Great and Square, who was on the show before. If you would have tuned into way back, and that was a really great interview. So he came back on. I sort of like told him last minute, hey man, do you want to do a video interview? Because I'm going to do a live show, and I'm not going to tell anybody about it. But I need a music segment, and so he came on, and after the interview, we have his music video that we're going to feature, which is awesome. Summer's Ending, which is off his new album, The Mendelbrot Set, which is another great album.
Great song. Cool name for an album.
I know,
Cool
right? You of all people.
Fractalicious.
I know, it is Fractalicious. It's
great.
So we're going to feature that. Great and Square is going to be on. But first, we're actually going to go to our commercial messages. So we're going to ask you, as you're watching these, please watch the whole thing. It actually helps us. It's kind of a way to sponsor. So if you haven't bought a postcard or if you haven't bought a book, one of the ways that you can just contribute is just to watch the commercials that we're going to have playing for you. We're going to try to make sure that they're not annoying, but we don't really control that, do we, Tommy Boy? No.
Well, you're going to get whatever
Google.
Whatever's in your email most often, you're probably going to get an ad related to
so
that.
hopefully,
but that's cool. That's cool. At least it's relevant.
It's relevant to you. So
So you're all gonna get different ads.
It's on you.
Go watch your ads.
It's on you. Yeah,
on you.
If you don't like the ad, that's your fault. Write better emails. So we'll be right back after these messages, and when we come back, we'll have Great and Square on. So don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages. We're back to the... I hope you guys liked the Great and Square interview, by the way. I promised during the interview that we would do a Star Trek challenge, and hopefully we're going to get that done. So if we can figure out the technical aspects of which we should be, right, Tommy Boy?
You know what? This is our first run-through, as it were. We actually didn't get that interview. We were cutting to a commercial break, so... The interview should be coming right up.
Oh, we didn't do the interview?
What's the motto of this whole show? What's the whole motto?
Operators not standing by?
No. That's the last show.
What is the motto? I don't even remember the
motto.
motto.
Do it live.
Well, fuck it. We'll do it live. Okay, so we did we had the wrong interview? We had the wrong interview?
We're good to go now.
We're good to go?
Yeah.
So now we have an interview with Great and Square. Let's go to the Great and Square interview.
Great artist.
So I don't look like an idiot. Go to the Great and Square review.
And here we go.
And welcome to the show. Today my guest is a return guest. He's been on my podcast before. And I'm sad to say that he did not make the Essentials DVD for the only reason that I did not actually own the audio version of the interview. It turns out that Graydon was actually interviewing me when I had him on the show. So it was like a bit of a reversal. So that I didn't have the master audio for that, so unfortunately he didn't come on. But here's what's more exciting. I get to have him on the show now, and I also get to show you guys some of the cool stuff he's been working on now. So I'd like to introduce you my guest. He's, I'm gonna put out there that you're both a poet and a rapper, because, maybe nobody makes the association yet that rap is poetry. So
well, yeah, I was just gonna argue that. I look at hip hop or rap in particular as the next evolutionary step of poetry, or poetry 2.0, or however you want to look at it. But they are directly related. I don't think that you can have one without having the other, because I'm not saying that all rappers are poets, but you can look at any rap out there as a poem. I'm never going to claim that the rappers are poets, because people don't take it as seriously as others, and I'm just not going to throw that title around. But
well, this is exactly why I wanted to put I didn't want to diminish rap to say that it's not poetry, but I think that it's important to put to put the emphasis on the fact that as far as when I listen to your music, I really put the poetry before I put any of the music elements. That's the part that sort of always gets to me. I'll say this first, and it'll be kind of like my complimenting you. I've bought 2 albums on iTunes, and one of them is yours, my friend.
Well, I mean, to me, that's always the greatest compliment that you can get, because in today's age, my brother Tombstone says it the best. They can download all your music for free. They don't have to support you, so you have to give them a reason to spend, what limited resources that they have, whether it be, their hard-earned money, or Bitcoin, or whatever currency that people are using. But you kind of have to make it worth their while in order to pay for it, because there's just too much garbage out there. There's too much access out there. So unless you're doing it in a way where people can believe in it, then you're not going to get that sell. And so when people tell me, hey man, I bought your record, look, I know all my music is available on all the piracy sites, and I always tell people, if you feel like you want to go do that, have at it, because I don't mind. But when you do take your time out and your resources out to support me, that's the best and highest compliment that I can receive. So thank you.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to put this glibly. I mean, the reason for it is, if you listen to the music, I mean, I had this conversation before with another member of Grand Unified, MC Brooks, who's on the who's one of my Yeah, he was actually on my 12-hour telethon, and he did a performance live, sort of like in one shot. Although he got a bit hung up on the beginning, but that was a tough call. We had just finished doing an interview, and I'm like, all right, jump into a song, man. But by the end, he crushed it. So it was.
Oh yeah. No, Brooks will adapt. I mean, he's been in a lot of live situations where he's been called on to just perform, and so he'll adjust. That's a good dude.
Yeah, well, so I had him on, and we got to talk about the fact that it's really important for people to understand that maybe if you haven't really identified or listened to a lot of hip hop or rap, it's because maybe the lyrics really haven't spoken to you and you haven't found the right stuff. And suddenly, when you're listening to rap music that's talking about existentialism or our place in the universe, all of a sudden you just find yourself, wow. I suddenly love rap music, and this, I think that's what's kind of shocking to people when they first get to the rap that speaks to them. And again, this is good. This goes back to that whole poetry aspect of it, where I think a lot of people's exposure are sort of so simply, well, I made lyrics that rhyme with some beats. Another person that said, I made poetry and then I put some beats to it.
Mm.
So I think that everybody loves poetry. Well, not everybody, but many people love poetry. So I guess the question is, how do we, how can we clarify which ones can reach people? How can we sort of clarify? I think that everybody should be listening to your music if they have any interest in science or in the nature of thought, and that's not something that's very common with, or at least understood when you think rap music. I don't usually think about, the cold death of the universe when I'm thinking about rap music.
Mm-hmm.
So you're fighting a bit of that stereotype. You're trying to reclassify through your own music, hip hop. Wouldn't you say?
Yes and no. There's some truth to that I'm trying to but here's the thing. I'm not trying to. There's enough hip hop. There's enough different types of hip hop out there. You can find whatever you're looking for. Hip hop is a lot like the internet. If you look hard enough, you'll find exactly what you're looking for. And you'll even find some stuff that may gross you out a little bit, that may be a bit abrasive, that may be a bit more harder than the reality that you may be used to. That's the nature of hip hop. It's a very unfiltered type of expression. And to me, that's where the best forms of hip hop come from these people who can take kind of what's going on in their reality, because we do have this first world, bias and viewpoint on what we go through, even though, we come from the ghettos of the first world. It is first world stuff. And so we can take that narrative and we can basically build poetry out of it and use that poetry and put it to rhythm and be able to have this type of 4/4 rhythm that we love, and obviously people deviate from that a little bit, but you get this rhythm and you can tell some amazing stories, you can teach some amazing concepts, you can challenge some pretty large institutions, all from this tool set called hip hop that people thought was a fad that wasn't going to last for 10 years, if that. So hip hop is going on 40, if not 40 now, and I believe I make my music not for people really to discover today. If you get around to it today, I feel like, hey, you're a little bit ahead of the curve when it comes to, maybe what you're looking for. But, I feel like my music is designed for people maybe in the next generation, 10, 15, 20 years from now. I feel like I'm writing to those people. I'm not really writing to I guess my peers and the society of today, because I don't really relate to a lot of the things that go on with society. I don't identify with those things, and so I feel like a lot of things that I'm writing to and for are for people who will no longer identify with those things. Hopefully, when we're closer to a type 1 type civilization.
Yeah, you mentioned types, in terms of civilization. For those who are unaccustomed to what is now kind of become almost your internal lingo, something that you take for granted that you talk about, you have a bit of a, let's say, a kind of obsession with civilizations that, how would you describe it? Because the name of your first album was the Kardashev scale, if I'm...
The Kardashev scale, right. Okay. So what I did was I took this concept, okay, so a small backstory, about 30 seconds. Originally, when I first came up, with the name Grade and Square, I was still in school and, that sort of stuff. And the first two albums that I did were in reference to physics concepts, but they were also double entendres to the city of Compton, where I'm from. And so when I was coming around for the third album, I thought, because there was another Compton album I could have went with that, no one really knows about, that I almost went with instead of the Kardashev scale. But one day I was sitting and I think I was, working on music or something, and I was watching this documentary, and I remember, I can't remember, I think it was Michio Kaku, who was talking about civilization types, and he mentioned something about being a planetary species. So, one thing led to another. I ended up on TV tropes, ended up on Reddit, ended up on, just Google mining, YouTube mining, and came up to this idea, this scientific concept known as the Kardashev scale, basically created by this Russian named Nikolai Kardashev. And his idea was to measure species, alien species, by the type of energy that they would consume. And he would rate these in the form of types. So type 1 would be a planetary species. They're able to use the energy of the entire planet. They're able to basically control most of the planetary elements, if not all of the planetary elements. They don't have the risk of becoming extinct due to some planetary event.
There's also a measure of how much energy you're harnessing, which seems to be kind of like, at the end of the day, the ultimate measure. How much energy, like, are you getting most of your energy from chemical energy, from, there seems to be scale. The scale of it all is dependent on energy, it seems.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, this has kind of been refined over the years, but his general idea was, at type 1 we would be a planetary species. At type 2 we would be basically a solar species, or a one system a star mining type species around type 2, and then type 3 you're getting to a galactic type species, or something that is kind of immeasurable if you really think about it, because we don't really understand scales of energy, not only that high, but what a species of that evolutionary type would think like, and what it would do, how it would travel. So you basically get into real speculation. But type 1 and type 2 are pretty much defined. Then you get into weird stuff, like type 4, which, most of the science fiction, Doctor Who, Time Lords, the Q from Star Trek would be considered a type 4 type species. So basically what I did was I adopted this scaling system for a series in my discography. So the first one I did, like you talked about earlier, was called the Kardashev scale, which was to introduce what this scale actually was. And so throughout the CD, I basically drop a lot of information about what it means to be a type 1 species, how we could avoid the perils that would prevent us from becoming type 1, because that's what Michio Kaku argued was that the hardest transition is from type 0 to type 1. It's easier from type 1 to type 2, or type 2 to type 3 than it is from type 0 to type 1, and that's because there are so many elements that would try to prevent a type 1 reality or type 1 existence on the planet, because they disagree with it. Most likely the type 1s would not disagree with evolving to a type 2 state, because they've already crossed that that unifying principle checkpoint, point of no return, if you will. So, what I did was, I took that, the Kardashev scale was type 1. Type 2 was the Mandelbrot set, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to show scale and
right,
size.
So the Mandelbrot set is about fractals.
Right. So for those who don't know, Benoit Mandelbrot was basically the father of fractals, and he invented the concept of basically, how fractals fit into our mathematics, and how it can be used to describe basically an infinite universe, because you have these small replicants of the whole, and they mirror each other, and you just you basically can drill forever with these with the Mandelbrot set equation. So I took these concepts and I basically adopted them into my music. And as I was researching for these concepts, all of that research ended up into my music.
But there seems to be an element of political. Well, how would I describe it? I mean, you have political messages. I mean, the video that we're going to be featuring. It's not just talking about infinite sets here. You're mentioning, you're putting the problem of homelessness into people's faces and trying to say, hey, I'm a human. I'm not this discarded piece of garbage, because I guess you must see the much of the decay or the collapse around you and feel that much more strongly. So what are the other themes that are going on through this new album? Like, what else are you talking about?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, yeah, that is true. I have, for a lot of my career, been very specific on the type of content that I've wanted to produce, and I tried to expand on the type of content that I was producing and that I was talking about and that I was covering in my first two albums. Well, my first album was heavily, about atheism and evolution, biology.
And moving past our ideas of creationism and all this other kind of stuff as
right.
well.
Well, yeah, it was a heavy critique on creationism and religious indoctrination as a whole. That was around the time where I just became an atheist, so my content had become the focus of my content creatively. And then when I had basically been, for lack of a better term, excommunicated from the atheist community, I went into more of a personal aspect of my music, which was the CPT theorem, which was, yes, I'm still talking about scientific concepts, but I'm also talking about how it personally relates to me, my life, the things that I went through as a child, the things that I went through growing up, the things that I went through as a soldier, and putting all of those things into an album that still encompasses what Graydon Square as a skeptical secular mind is. So there was that. And then after that, coming out of that, when I was learning about the Cartesian scale, it shifted from a secular perspective to a humanist / transhumanist perspective, which was, I'm not necessarily arguing or specifically targeting religious indoctrination or creationism anymore. Now I'm trying to target all of the particular ills that would prevent us from becoming a type 1 civilization. And I tried to cover those things in the type 1 record. In type 2, I tried to make that like type 1 on steroids. I tried to make it to where the Mandelbrot set expands on what type 1 was, and it tries to challenge even more of the things that would prevent us from becoming a planetary species, and try to show the depth in my catalog. The reason why I even called it type 2 in the Mandelbrot set is because it's a 2-disc set of CDs. So if you've ever bought the physical copy, it comes with 2 CDs and disc 1 and disc 2 sort of thing. So that was
a sexy case too. Let's not forget that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you always put a lot of effort into the artwork that comes with it, and I think that's probably an important other element of why somebody would want the physical DVD itself. It's not just lazily slapped together, and I think that on the first album, there was, it's like a star being harnessed. Remember how I was saying that it's really just about gathering energy? So here you have like the concept, if you want, as an almost, I don't know, it seems like, I don't want to say cyberpunk kind of look, but it's not something, again, that you would expect on the cover of a hip-hop album. It's science fiction. It's that kind of fantasy element that is, again, very surprising, but for me, it's a delightful surprise. You avoid all those easy, lazy stereotypes that people come to expect. You're not utilizing that avenue. You never do anything that's what we're looking for overtly commercial. It's always from the heart, spoken, and I'm sure the message is so controversial that some people may not want to actually play. Have you experienced those problems?
Yeah, there's a lot of things at play there. Number one, yes, the content is a bit, controversial in the sense that we haven't really had the conversations yet, but I don't believe that what I'm talking about other people shouldn't be talking about. That's number one. And then I feel like the approach that I've taken in my music when it comes to commercial music is the approach of, I don't know, I always make this example. Dwayne Wade and the Chicago Bulls in the summer of 2010 or 20, it was 2010, 2010. Now what happened was Dwayne Wade's from Chicago. He grew up as a Bulls fan, watching Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman, blah, blah, blah. And what happened is they broke that team up at the end of their run. I think it was 97, 98. And D. Wade took that personal from the Bulls organization. So he grows up, becomes this legendary basketball player, and then when free agency comes up, he allows that to be the deciding factor in why he didn't go to Chicago. Now, I say that to say this. I've always had a problem with the industry. I've always had a problem with the music industry. I've always had a problem with record companies. I've always had a problem with A&Rs. I don't like them. I don't like their kind. I don't like their people. I don't like their tactics. I don't like their stench. I just don't like them. And because of that, I will never do anything that will put me in the situation where I have to deal with those people, ever. And I will always do me creatively. I will always try to give my fans the best product and the best creative expression that I can give them, but I will never take a commercial shortcut in order to do that. I will sell no records before, I ever take that shortcut. And there are a lot of people out there who take that shortcut. I'm not going to call anybody out, but they took that shortcut because they realized that the society was changing for the worse and for the less intellectual, and they had to dumb their music down in order to keep up or keep down or whatever it is.
Just to sell records, let's just say it.
Right. Well, just to do their numbers, and some people just care about their numbers, and I get that, but also don't expect me to respect you as an MC who didn't sell out the fundamental principles of what we do. So, it's like I tell them, like, they can be rich and I can just speak from, my pedestal, and we'll call it a fair trade.
Yeah, well, there you go. They can boast about how much money they make, and then meanwhile you can just say, well, I'm the one making real music, motherfucker.
and that's just it. I mean, that's why I hope that what I do today is more impactful to those who come 15, 20, 25 years from now, and hopefully they can listen to what I'm saying and get, I think, what I was trying to say as it relates to how close they are to type 1. Because the closer we get, the more turmoil we will see before we basically either have a singularity, a technological singularity, or we blow ourselves up. And I think we're more likely to blow ourselves up. Carl Sagan thought it was more likely that we would blow ourselves up than we would reach that type of planetary species.
Well, I got it. The bad news is that almost all of us are the survivors of ancestors that were genocidal maniacs. Mm-hmm. So there are aspects of us that are very difficult to expunge. And I think that this is why it's interesting that your music is, you went back after if you want, your expulsion from the atheism scene, you went back to something more personal, and I think that's a good thing anyways, because I don't think the atheism scene could have appreciated what you contribute, and I think it would have limited you. I think that when you're talking about things that you see around you, I mean, you have a plan, and in your head it may sound crazy. I mean, it sounds to me like you have a 5 billion year plan where you're like, I'm going to indoctrinate the youth of tomorrow into wanting to be a type 1 civilization with some, laying down some beats, and I'm going to change the fucking world. And you know what? Respect that. You don't think I want to do something kind of crazy similar, except for I cannot write poetry to save my life.
I mean, you could if I've had students that literally had not rapped a word in their life, and I believe that rap is not a talent, that it is a learned behavior, and that, like, Eminem is a prime example of that. He has mastered rap, and look, hip hop is not his first language. Let's be real. So if that's the case, then then you can see that, or somebody like Big Pun. Big Pun's another example, like, where English was not his first language, and yet once he was able, to find a way to really challenge himself in the English language, he became a master at it and rapping. So to me, if you learned what the mechanics are, you can do it. Anybody can do it. It's just learning the mechanics of what makes sense and why it makes sense, as opposed to just thinking that you're going to sit down because you have some special ability to do it and you're going to do it.
Okay, so then therefore I have two separate challenges for you. Okay, the first is a continuation of the first challenge that I had already proposed. One is that when my live shows are a little bit more popular, I want you back on, and you and I are going to participate in a competition, a geek off, if you will, because the last show we had said that we were going to do. I'm not sure if it was Star Trek or Star Wars. Which one?
Oh no, it was Star Trek, because I would have never agreed to Star Wars.
Right, Star Trek. It was a Star Trek sort of like a thon. So you and I, when my show sort of picks up, you're going to come back, and we're going to do one of those. And then later on, I'm going to challenge you for, when I come down to LA, when hell freezes over, you and I are going to sit down and you're going to teach me, and we're even going to film this. We're going to teach an old dog new tricks. We're going to see if we can get Jacob to lay down some raps. So that's going to be my challenge to you. Do you accept both challenges, sir?
Yes, I do, and you'll be quite surprised at both results, actually.
Surprised at both. Have you been studying? I better hit the books.
You know what? The best place to study anything science fiction or anything fiction related is this TV tropes place. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's TV.
No, I've never used it.
ROPES.org, and either .org or .com. And anyway, it's TV tropes, and basically, this place is like the black hole of the internet. Like, you go in there and you're like type 1 species, and it gives you every example in every fiction imaginable, and then from there you're going and you're like, oh well, I've never heard of this species before, and now you're doing research on that species. Now you're going to get those books to read about that species. I've never played the Halo games, really. I played the first one just a little bit, but I really didn't. I like more realistic shooters, and so I really didn't get into it. But I completely missed out on the fact that it has one of the deepest stories in science fiction that I've ever heard of, and it's got type 3 species, all the way up to type 3 species in it, possibly higher. And I would even get into some, and this may be a conversation we'll have off air, but my next album, called Omniverse, talks about the connection between universes and how all universes are connected in order to basically express one organism of a universe, which you would call the omniverse, right? Just the collection of all universes connected would be an omniverse. And so I would argue that any type 3 species or above may have an ability to communicate with other type 3 species, or at least something of a technological equal. And so it just goes into this argument as to what is real, the old Matrix question, what is real? Because I would argue sometimes that the Marvel comic books that I read seem just as real as the universe that I live in. They just have different physical laws and different origins. So I don't know, what do you think about that?
So you're asking me one of those, in the world of possibilities, could there be a universe in which there are Marvel superheroes and where those comic books are actually describing something that may in fact be happening?
Well, okay, here, and yes, but I argue that because it is already a universe in which characters in it are aware of the outside world. Now, even if that's deliberate by the writers, you have someone like Deadpool who is aware that he is a comic book character, that there's a person named Stan Lee, and that he is the one above all in reference to that particular universe. What I'm saying is that in this particular, argument, we recognize every fictional universe as just as real as our own, or at least recognize them as real and ours as just as fake. Basically, to give this perception that you are the master of your own destiny. You are the writer of your own story.
Well, let me put this out for you then. If something like this is true, all right, then I would then by that logic, there's a universe out there where the Bible is true.
Yeah, I know. That's what people would argue. I would even argue that. But there's also a universe out there where, there are different variations of that. And what I've always argued is, I've never said that I've never speculated that God didn't exist. I've always said that that God didn't exist here in this universe. And if that was the case, then whatever universe that that God is in, it is contained to that particular universe. It's not here. Otherwise, this universe would be a lot different. But once again, this is just an argument. I don't necessarily believe this to be fact. I'm arguing this as a concept, just like, you know, the Mandelbrot set or the Kardashev scale. That stuff could be totally end up to be completely false, and we may not go down that road. But I like to think of it as it's a pretty nice idea to explore creatively, and that's all I'm doing with the Omniverse. The Omniverse is just, you know, because it's a 3-disc album, and you know, one of them is called Omniverse. The other one is called Omniverse, but it's spelled different, and it's meant to express the most fundamental sound. And this idea of string theory, that there is a basic vibration from which all other vibrations come from. So then there's that Omniverse.
Well, as a musician, I think that, you know, there's a part there that sort of waxes a little poetic, don't you think?
Yeah, right. And I like that. So you have Omniverse, the universal concept, and then Omniverse, the auditory concept, and then obviously the title being Type 3, which is to signify that it's the next one in the series.
And you gotta get them all, folks. You gotta. That's why they're numbered. It's genius. 1. Oh, you have 1 and 3. What happened to 2? Right? Get with the program.
Right. And I think I've already decided that there will be a Type 4, and that it will be in some way, shape, or form a movie. I'm not really sure how that's going to take place yet, but it's going to be a video epic. That's the only thing I can say, is that Type 3 will be a video epic. Or I'm sorry, Type 4 will be a video epic.
Well, if it's anything like the video that we're going to be playing, so that's off the Mandelbrot set. So the title of the hold on a second. What is it? What's the title of the video again?
The video is called Summer's Ending.
Summer's Ending. Okay.
Off of the Mandelbrot set, Type 2, the Mandelbrot set.
So this is a bit of a preview of, like, you're going to be doing more of these videos and that kind of stuff. And I mean, like you said, like I said, your YouTube channel is getting pretty big. So you could find yourself suddenly exploding, man. If you really started putting more content out there, you might be surprised.
Yeah, but remember that I'm not necessarily. There's a certain level of fame that I'm not really interested in. You know what I mean? Like I saw the story about the guy who plays King Joffrey on Game of Thrones, and him saying that he's gonna basically retire after Game of Thrones is over. He's gonna retire from acting because he doesn't really like the life of fame. He doesn't really like the life of overexposure, especially in this society with, you know, 24-hour social media constantly being on you when you are famous. It's like you can't really make the average mistake that somebody else is gonna make because it's, you know, locked in a box and put on the internet and forever. And so I just feel like, me personally, I like the small, you know, kind of, if you've heard of me, you've heard of me kind of fame that I have. And to where if it's not, then maybe you're not ready to hear what I have to say. If you haven't heard about Great and Square, chances are you're not really on that path. And I like that about what I've done.
Okay, but can I make this suggestion? And this goes along with this whole 5 billion year plan of yours. Is that, imagine if let me craft a little tale of heroism, right? The hero of any story has to go through this ordeal in order to be able to achieve whatever ends he has. I don't know, sort of save the kingdom, whatever, you know, whatever trope, fantasy trope you have. So obviously, in the journey of the hero, it's not going to be pleasant. So if your music would be able to inspire people, you know, like, I'm going to tell you something which probably only you and a few other people would agree with me on. I would say that Gene Roddenberry is one of the most important human beings that ever lived.
I agree with that.
He created a future for us that we want.
Can you say that one more time? Can you just say that one more time?
Okay.
So people can just...
Gene Roddenberry is one of the most important human beings that ever lived.
Ever lived. Yeah. Now I'm not, and people think that when you say things like that, oh, you're trying to make a demigod out of.
Yeah, you're being glib, or you were exaggerating.
No, that's not what. If you look at his contribution to our way of thinking, it is almost immeasurable. I mean, first of all,
It's
you
still
can just go
happening
out there.
around us, by the way. We have the world of Star Trek is being built. We have the 3D replicator, which is the replicator. We
Yep.
have the iPad, which is basically the little fucking pad that people
Right,
read. We have
pads.
almost everything except for a transporter, which we're still
We're
working
still
on.
working on. We're able to transport right now, very, very small objects across, what's pretty long distances to be transporting anything. Like the fact that we're working on a transporter should scare the shit out of anybody.
I'm not going in one. I'm sorry. It's not happening.
I am. If I could, I would. I'm not
You're
gonna lie.
fucked. You know what's going to happen when you're a transporter? Basically, you died, and your clone was created. That's what's happening every time you're in a transporter.
However, if through that, you know how in Star Trek they screen out, they do the screenings every time you get transported, and they check to see if you're coming back with any type of alien pathogen or anything like that.
Sure.
So they would be able to screen in my body through that transporter, and if that was not to come with me, then I'm glad that this version of me passed on and that version of me lived.
Yeah, you know what they're going to teleport away? Your stream of consciousness. You're now a clone.
I would be sitting there like,
Who am I? Uh-oh.
1, 2, still trying to be a rapper.
It's like, hey, we transported his body, but somehow the makeup of his mind, geez, that was a lot more complicated than we thought.
Here's the thing, though. On a planetary scale, you don't need a transporter. What you need, really, is ETT, technology, evacuated transport tube technology. And you get that, which is, the old Futurama kind of tube system, but with a vehicle.
Yeah, not just a naked human being.
No, not just a naked human being. But, you basically these tube vehicles that they have these networks all across the globe, and basically it allows you to get from anywhere on the planet to anywhere else on the planet within 45, 50, 60 minutes.
So let me ask you, because we deviated from my challenge, and the challenge was this: that if you wanted to be the next Gene Roddenberry in terms of making that difference with your music, but you had to suffer through the horrors of fame, would you fucking take up that hero's mantle, or would you retreat back to your cave, sir?
Okay, that's okay. I understand where you're going with this, and that's a good question to ask. Personally, I would take on the mantle just because personally I feel like I could take it, I could handle it to a certain extent. I'd have to have a lot of control over my environment and that sort of thing for me not to basically have to do anything that I obviously would regret. So I would do it, but that doesn't mean everybody should or that everybody would, because personally, I don't necessarily know if this species is worth it.
That's cold, man. That's cold.
It is. It's cold, but it's the truth. Sometimes I don't know if we as a species are worth, quote unquote, saving. If we're worth type 1, do we deserve type 1? Because once you're there, I think at that point, you start seeding the universe, and with whatever you are, that goes out into the universe. And what I would like to think is that we would be seeding the universe with a type of intellect that would be conscious and caring about life and individual liberties. But if we don't have that, idea, then what we send out into the universe won't have that idea. It will have the idea of a conqueror. It will have the idea of, kind of the old welcoming party, and not in a good way. So I just feel like what we seed the universe with depends on what we do in the immediate future. And I think that sometimes it makes me think we shouldn't really do that, because we're not the type of species that should seed the universe with anything.
Look, I understand your reservations, Drayden, but why don't you and I have a discussion? We'll have a cosmic baby together. We don't know where it's going to go. It's a big risk out there. But, it's just like parenting. Yeah, things might go wrong, but at the end of the day, you hope you did a good job.
Right.
I mean, and that's going to be through your music.
And this is why I argue that we aren't ready for an artificial general intelligence.
I agree. I agree because we're just going to make slaves of them.
Right. Well, or they will look at us and say we are far more trouble than we're worth, reduce this planet to gray goo, and call it a day. You're
the Terminator kind. I'm more of we're going to make them, I'm saying, though, here's what we're going to do with artificial intelligence. We're going to make them Tamagotchi pets. and sort of like confine them to this weird universe that when we stop paying attention to them, their own artificially selected brains miss us, and then we don't give a shit anymore.
Well,
we'll create these fucking entities that live forever that are programmed to want love from them, and then we're gonna fucking totally abandon them. That's what's gonna happen.
But the reason why I have the idea, not necessarily it's a Terminator idea, but it's close. It is a kind of they turn on us, because the reason why I have that idea is because we have shown ourselves to be more trouble than we would be worth for that type of intellect who would be able to look at us and say, look, I'm smarter than every human being on this planet could possibly be ever. Why do I need these things around? They're just going to wreck the planet for every other species on the planet, and this planet might just be better off without them. Because right now, that's kind of what we look like.
Yeah, but according to your own words, I think that you're even making the case for it. Maybe we should create artificial intelligence, let them be the judge, and then figure out if we should sort of like evolve to type 1 or 2.
No, I don't think that we can. I don't think that once we create it, it's in our control. If they have control over their source code, then once the cat's out the bag, it's not really up to us anymore. The intelligence will become smarter than the human being will possibly become, and unless we augment ourselves to try to keep up with that, and some may try, it's just I don't believe that unless we make fundamental changes to our nature as a society, then yes, that's what we look like to an artificial intelligence. And I'm not saying I'm making the case for it, but to me, if I'm the artificial intelligence, that's what I see in humanity right now.
Yeah, I gotta say, you're specious towards humanity, and I don't trust your opinion, sir. I think you take the artificial intelligence side, and you betray us, you bastard.
You know what? I welcome our robot overlords.
I knew it. All right, well, you heard it here first, folks. Great and Square embraces the robot overlords, but until that happens, I guess we're just gonna have to live our daily lives just as as though that's not happening, that's not coming in the near future. Yeah. So I want to thank my guest for giving us such hope for the future. And we're going to listen to this video, Summer's Ending. And I want to thank you so much. You know what? You're my whole. I was going to have you on for 15 minutes, but then we get all geeky and shit. So you're going to be my whole interview now.
All right. Sounds good, man.
All right, great. And thanks so much for coming on the show.
No problem.
And we're back.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed that interview. Now I can actually say that and mean it, because the original time we kind of fucked it up. But
do it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live. And if we can figure out the technical aspects of actually getting me and Graydon to do that contest, we are going to try to make that happen. It shouldn't be that hard, right? Like, we can do this.
We can do this.
We can do this. I mean, every single time I've launched this massive, totally out of our league kind of challenge, we've actually mostly managed to pull it off. So let's just, we'll put this other challenge out there. If we reach, we need a kind of like subscription number challenge. Maybe if we reach like 500 subscribers, like an arbitrary deadline or something. People love that shit. Yeah, if we have a large amount of subscribers, we're gonna do it. Fucking trivia, we'll do it live. It should be fun.
Do it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live. So before we go, we're gonna have another commercial break. I'd like to remind everybody that if you are tuning in now, you can support this site and any future show by going to jacobfortinet.com or thegoodatheist.net and checking out all these really awesome things we got for you. We got a postcard, or we have several postcards you buy, the ebook, an audiobook package. We also have the Essentials DVD if you ever like the podcast, or the massive everything bundled together. And with this amazing T-shirt, all of that. That's your donation of $60. Now, if you can't do it via PayPal, there's a convenient contact us button. You can just click on that and get in touch with us, and then all of a sudden, bam, we can do business. And then you can help make this show continue to happen. Isn't that what you want? That's what you want. You want this show to happen more and more. You're going to get addicted to it. That's what's going to happen.
That's what you want.
It is. It's like we're giving you the free stuff here, like very much like a drug dealer. and we're just saying you're gonna want more, really. So just give in, just let it take over. So we're gonna go to a commercial break, and when we come back, we're gonna have Graydon Square's music video for Summer's Ending, which is I think you guys are gonna really like. He's doing more of these music videos, and I think, you know, like us going to video. Apparently, video is the future. Do you hear about this?
I heard about this thing called video.
Yeah,
People
moving
like
pictures.
It,
It's like people like, I don't know why they like it. It's apparently better than just talking to them. People need to see what the fuck you look like. So let's go to a commercial break, and when we come back, we're gonna have Graydon Square's video, and then we're gonna have a little exiting monologue. So stay tuned for that, everybody.
Yeah. It's kind of cold. Yeah. 1, 2. Yeah. Look, I'm the creepy guy in the trench coat following you. The homeless guy on the side of the freeway bothering you. I tried to signal, but you didn't pay me no mind. Now I call like a bill collector till you pay me on time. I've got the skill to describe your morphogenetic field, and yet and still go back to the math for a better thrill. We took all of our collective forces and unified it. You read the Bible, and that isn't even pseudoscience. You think I'm afraid of Islam like I'm shook nervous? I'll torture Quran with my lyrics, fuck a book burning. These blacks accept the religion of the slave master, but they wouldn't accept it if you were a gay rapper. Why is it when we want to move forward, we face backwards? Our community's sick, religion the main factor. You have such a problem with gays and transsexuals. What if I told you that we were trans intellectuals? You probably flip, deny that you remember. Call for those who think like me to be dismembered. Something you picked up from a former era. Spreading religious love in the form of terror. Pipe down, pick up a book right now. Of an opposing view, you might find out everything ain't what you thought it was. There are no others, everyone's a part of us. There's just an illusion of something different. The very reason they keep telling you something's missing. But what with gays and transsexuals, what if I told you that we were trans intellectuals? You yeah. It's kind of cold. Yeah. 1, 2. Yeah. Look, I'm the creepy guy in the trench coat following you. The homeless guy on the side of the freeway bothering you. I tried to signal, but you didn't pay me no mind. Now I call like a bill collector till you pay me on time. I've got the skill to describe your morphogenetic field, and yet and still go back to the math for a better thrill. We took all of our collective forces and unified it. You read the Bible, and that isn't even pseudoscience. You think I'm afraid of Islam like I'm shook nervous? I'll torture Quran with my lyrics, fuck a book burning. These blacks accept the religion of the slave master, but they wouldn't accept it if you were a gay rapper. Why is it when we want to move forward, we face backwards? Our community's sick, religion the main factor. You have such a problem with gays and transsexuals. What if I told you that we were trans intellectuals? You probably flip, deny that you remember. Call for those who think like me to be dismembered. Something you picked up from a former era. Spreading religious love in the form of terror. Pipe down, pick up a book right now. Of an opposing view, you might find out everything ain't what you thought it was. There are no others, everyone's a part of us. There's just an illusion of something different. The very reason they keep telling you something's missing. But whatever it is, you won't get from one religion. I hate to break it to you, get your cold, summer's ending. Summer's ending. It's just an illusion of something different. The very reason they keep telling you something's missing. Whatever it is, you won't get from one decision. I hate to break it to you, get your cold, summer's ending. Summer's ending. There's only so many legal moves when When you've seen the rules, you wonder how they have so many people fooled. I never thought when I was young in class that I would be scribbling in chalk on the walls of the underpass. Some might ask, how'd it happen? How'd you get there? Most people thinking I'm just yapping when I sit there and just stare at traffic rapping just to get there. Half a second of attention span as they spin years. Rentable to the highest bidder in a bidding war. Disappear from 9 to 5 and act like I'm invisible. Pitiful, wanna be pimps, players, and centerfolds. In it for the cash and status, and yet they miserable. I'm not homeless, I'm just off the grid. Be happy if I was on it, I'd be offing kids. I think the problem is we ain't being honest. I'd rather live like shit than pay for shadow conflicts. We ain't broke, it's the system that is broken. This is a modern day plantation and you know it. Manufacture patriotism, mix asking questions about secret initiatives. Just as dangerous as SEALs on the secretive mission. Secret prisons, people stealing. Even paranoid transients see the villains. Sure, I hear voices telling me inhale the weed and always peer forward. Wandering the scorched earth, just looking to score something to eat. Get out of the rain, a blanket, and somewhere to sleep. Wondering if the Sally box is gonna pan out. All you see is another grown man with his hand out. Nothing to my name except for some books, while the cops watch everybody except for the crooks. And the people left on the hook be like ho-hum. Plus they get to pay for it too. This is so dumb. A balancing act with peace as the fulcrum. But what would I actually know? I'm just some smelly old bum. Dig through old crates feeding on breadcrumbs. Just another mother's broken son whose head's gone. Fumble in a basket, mumbling some racket under that bridge, where a normal man becomes a savage. One man's peace, another man's madness. You keep the illusion, I'll just settle for a jacket. There's just an illusion of something different. The very reason they keep telling you something's missing. But whatever it is, you won't get from one religion. I hate to break it to you, get your cold, summer's ending. Summer's ending. It's just an illusion of something different. The very reason they keep telling you something's missing. But whatever it is, you won't get from one decision. I hate to break it to you, get your cold, summer's ending. Summer's ending.
And we're back.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed Great and Square's music video. Sorry about the little hiccup there at the beginning. We
Doing it live.
fuck it, we're doing it live.
But amazing song. What a talent.
I know, and you, Tommy Boy, have not even actually heard all of his music. You would be a fan. Like I said before in the interview, you know, the one thing that is always surprising is that you don't know really what kind of music you like until you find one whose lyrics speak to you. So
It's such a cool mashup of
genres and
hip-hop
ideas, and
science.
you're not
and
used to it.
intellectual
You're
stuff.
just not used to it, right? That's
It's
the
a
whole thing.
1-2 jab. It's wicked.
I know.
It's wicked.
Well, it's when you really identify with what's being rapped about. I mean, you realize I'm into rap. It's just that the fucking shit I was exposed to was not for me. So that's what's really great about Graydon. He, you know, it's like being introduced to a genre of music that you may have been a little bit close to because how you were exposed to it was, well, you know, the kind of crap you listen to in a club. But, you know, like Graydon said in his music, he's really, I mean, in the interview, he's really not interested in making that kind of music. So I'm very interested in what his future albums are going to be like. It's going to be on the show and talk about those when they happen. And if we can make that trivia thing fucking work, I hope it can work. Can it work? T-Bad's going to promise. Yeah, do it.
You got to do it.
So as we wrap up, before we wap up the show,
Do it.
again, I want to remind everybody that if you're just tuning in, the way that we sort of make this happen is through your contributions. So if you go to the website, if you're on jacobfortan.com or you're on thegoodatheist.net, you'll see we have this attractive little layout. You can buy these, our postcard. You can buy the advanced ebook, which helps get this sucker rolling.
Hey, what's the most popular item so far?
Well, obviously the ebook is doing pretty well, but the second most popular thing is definitely the postcards, because there's just something about postcards. I don't know about you. I mean, when I first designed postcards like this, I went back when I was dating my ex. They just fucking disappeared like hotcakes. Maybe it's the format. Maybe in this digital world, man, we just don't get enough like physical objects anymore. We don't have anything to play with or something. It's all electronic, so
Tangible, real.
you need something tangible. And plus, this is the kind of thing that you can mail to your family member that you just want to piss off, man.
Your old religious group.
Your old religious uncle who's just bothering. I have
cranky.
one. I have an old religious uncle. I'm going to probably send him one of my postcards to piss him off, too. I don't know if I'm going to do that at Christmas. It's a bit hostile.
That's cold, man.
It's a bit cold, but you know what? I don't have actually an excuse. It is a bit cold.
That is a bit cold. Really, it's a bit cold.
It's Christmas. Maybe you don't need to be that cold.
Because it's Christmas. That's a great reason.
So now, before we wrap up, I want to also thank everybody who just happened to somehow latch onto the feed and would not let go, even though we told them this is all experimental. And also thank everybody who's been a supporter for all those years. Anyone who's a member of the 300, who's part of my fan base, that give part of their support and that kind of stuff. I mean, that without that, really, I would not be here. I mean, even though I'm desperately trying to pay my bills and not have jeans that have holes in them, at the end of the day, I'm not an unhappy man, and I'm still trying to make this happen. So if we're getting it there, it's because of you guys, and it's also because of other special people like my producer, supreme executive producer Tommy Boy. He's right there in the booth, giving you the
Support the arts.
support the arts.
Be a patron.
And one of the things about the show is that we support the arts too. We're gonna have plenty more musicians, plenty more artists. Not just about me, actually. We gotta get less of me, more of everybody else. Don't you agree, Mr. B? Less of me.
A little bit less would be
Just right. You know what I mean? Like a recipe. And like tomatoes, Sometimes you can be a little overwhelming. So we're gonna have tons of artists, tons of other people in the show. So please support if you can, and we're gonna catch you next time. My name is Jacob Fortin.
Are you still talking?
I'm done talking. I feel bad.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.